So I'm just getting everything set up right now. I just wanted to go live because why not? But we'll get there. Yes, what we want. I only had 3 hours of sleep last night, so forgive me for that as well. Ooh. Okay. Alright, we got everything up. Oh man. Alright. Close that. So, let me explain what I'm kind of working on, I guess. So, what I did last night, delete that, yeah. So, the first thing I did was I got, drops working properly, whatever, woohoo. But, car spawns, I wanted to add passenger seats to a car. So I was like, okay, how do I add passenger seats into Rust's cars, right? And I figured it wouldn't be too difficult, right? Go ahead and attach some extra seats to the car, maybe add a little bit of functionality. But in general, it shouldn't be that hard. It should just be, okay, attach seats to the car, player looks at the seat when they want to get in, they get in, right? Well, I was sorely wrong. The first thing I found out was that the bounds of the sedan, the car, actually takes precedence. So by having, logging the Steam now, by having my chairs inside the car, the hitbox of the sedan would actually stop me from being able to access them, which kind of makes sense because you don't want to be able to glitch into a chair through a wall like that or a window or whatever. So it makes sense. But we're just gonna go ahead and boot up the game here real quick. So I was like, okay, well, what's my next best thing, right? So I was like, I'll move the chairs to the outside of the car and I'll just try to get in them from there, right? And that'll be a start. Well, then I found the next best thing. By attaching the chair to the car and not messing with its collider, it was throwing a bunch of errors. So I went ahead and disabled its collision and it fixed the errors. But what it also did was it made it so I couldn't get in the chair anymore. Without the collider there, the function that checks whether or not you're allowed in the chair can't work ever. So, and it took me a couple hours to figure that out because I was really trying to find any way to get past that function because it was not a function that was hooked by Oxide. So I was trying to get past it and I couldn't. I never found a way. So instead, and we're gonna get open IL Spy here. Where is it? IL Spy. So instead, and here's the function, RPC once mount. So it would get here, and I verified that it would get here. And this function near mount point. If the collision was disabled and its parent for its transformation wasn't set, it wouldn't error, but the distance check would fail. So I thought, okay, increase the distance just to test that. Well, even then, this sphere cast fails. So, because it doesn't, hit a chair, anything on that layer, because the chair's collider is disabled. Okay. So I was like, well, we'll switch it all back. Sphere cast failed in every situation I tried it in. So I'm like, okay, I need to find a way to get to this .mount player without having to go through the action. So I just started tracing back the RPC stuff, and it ended up taking me to all the way down to server MGR. Where is it? Server manager. Took me all the way to here, where we would get. Where is it? On network message. So it ended up taking me all the way back to here, right? So that's where I ended up falling to. So I was like, okay, this isn't hooked either. So I was like, well, what can I do with this? So I thought for a second, for quite a long time, that I'd have to use Oxide Patcher and patch it myself, right? And I actually made a post on Oxide about how to do so. If we head on over to that post real quick. So I went ahead and I made a post here saying, hey, can we add this hook while I'm trying to figure it out, right? And Wolf goes, okay, keep in mind that server and client, so not everything is server-sided or used or triggered. Well, I knew that, but I knew that SV on RPC message had to have been triggered because the functions were being run on the server. So I just kind of ignored him because it was clear he wasn't going to give me a straight answer. So I came back to this function and I'm like, well, where does this get called from? So I went ahead and I analyzed it, and I see, okay, it's used by server manager open connection, and that's used by, bootstrap start server. Let's head into open connection. So I was looking through here, I'm like, okay, network net SV, which when I click it doesn't go anywhere, so I'm like, alright, that variable doesn't exist, but it does in runtime, whatever. Equals convar server IP, convar server port, okay, starts, so if it fails, you can't start the server, otherwise we start up Steam, and then I'm looking here and I'm like, oh, so these are all actions and funcs, and I'm like, well, there's a good possibility that what I can do is I can overwrite this or add on to it. So I'm looking at that and I'm like, okay, that's probably my best play, is to take this variable on message and overwrite it with my own action. And then whenever my plugin unloads, reset it. So I started looking into that, and I spent quite a while learning how the network messages are structured. And what I ended up getting was this. So when you go to install the network hook, I still don't know where net.sv ever exists, but you go ahead and you make a clone of the old one, so we can set it later, and then we add our own function here, and when we uninstall, we just reset it. So in here, I wrapped it in a try catch, but I don't even know if I need one. We check specifically, because now we're in on network message, wherever that was, on network message. We're in here now. So whenever we have a message type RPC message, that's what we're looking for, an RPC message. We go ahead and we want to. At first, I thought I could just say, okay, if we have an RPC message, go ahead and run my code, or call the base and then run my code. Well, that won't work, because as soon as you read from a packet, that data becomes unreadable again. It's basically like stepping through, which I found out pretty soon. So I was like, okay. Whenever I receive an RPC message, I just have to step through it. I have to handle it all in here. So whenever I get an RPC message, I have to handle it manually, which is almost a direct copy and paste. I keep doing that. Almost a direct copy and paste from this function here, to be honest. Otherwise, we're just going to send whatever network message it is to the old one. So when it is an RPC message, we'll go ahead and we'll read all its data, and that gives us our entity. So we can check if that entity is a mountable, a seat, and it's not a car, because cars are based off mountables. So if it is, we want to call my own SVRPC message. Otherwise, we need to call that. And I actually got that from this.onRPC message, which is in here. So if we need to call mine, then we come up to the next function, which is actually the mountable RPC message that we were looking at earlier. The base mountable on RP, no, it's not this. It is the base entity SVRPC message. So it actually would be calling this function. So I went ahead and took this function, copied it, modified it just slightly. You can see I still have the globals there. You can tell I copied it, but I went ahead and copied it. And then I had my stream running in my background. That's what that was. Okay. I basically said, okay, whenever we call my own SVRPC message, we're clearly trying to call my new mountable check, which says, okay, which does the changes I'm going to get to. So whenever we get there, instead of calling, what it normally calls, which is on RPC message, which comes from base mountable's RPC message, instead of calling this function, we're going to call my own. And that's the final real step in this. So again, copied and pasted this whole thing and modified it. So whenever we receive an RPC message, if it is a mount or a dismount, whatever, the big thing was this return, because at the end of RPC message we have base.onRPC message, and we don't want to recall what we just executed. We don't want to, sit them twice in the seat if possible. We don't want to run the checks again. We don't want to do any of that. So, just cast the mountable to its base type and call that on RPC message, and that'll travel its way down the stack. So whenever you wanted to sit in a chair, we have a little bit of sanity checking to do. So right now, what we have is only if we're in trying to send an RPC message to a chair, which can be mount or dismount, nothing else. Only if we're one of those two functions, then we're either sending it to a seat or a car. So we need to add some checks. So first we check, okay, does it have a parent entity? Because all of the chairs are attached to the car. So if it doesn't have a parent entity, we're just going to call the base once mount, because we are wanting to get in the seat. And if it does have a parent entity, verify that's a car, and if it's not, just call the base function again, which will fail, but not my problem. Otherwise, we run almost the exact same sanity checks that once dismount has, right? Which is, or once mount has, which is, okay, if the seat is not mounted, if the seat is mounted already, if someone's already sitting there, don't do anything. If the seat is, if you're trying to get into it from a distance greater than its maximum distance it allows, we can't get into that either. All I stripped out was this raycast stuff, because that was what was failing. Which could cause issues, but I'm just trying to get it to work. So I went ahead and I said, okay, add those two sanity checks in, get the car from the parent entity, and then after that, basically all I have to do is move the player into the seat. Well, the problem is the bound stuff. If the seat's in the car, I can't access it. So what I actually ended up coming up with was this broken ass thing, which is time 10. The seats are attached on the outside of the car at a specific position based on front right, back right, and back left. If you try to get in the car anywhere else, you just get in the driver's seat. But if you come up to these seats and I want to, say, sit in one, it appears like the seat moves inside the car, right? And you get a little bit of head clipping, but you can't actually shoot through it, so that's a little broken, but we'll get there. So you get into the seat of the car, and since this is attached, and since you're attached, and since base mountable max velocity is based on the parent entity, because there's an invisible seat technically in this car, then for the driver's seat, then we're good. So and then when you jump out, the seat goes back out here. Now it doesn't actually move. I tried getting its position to change, but it wasn't changing the first time I tried it, so I was like being a little dumb, and I was just like, fuck it. Whenever you try to get in this seat, create a new seat in the car at this back left position or wherever else. Move the player into that seat, and when they get out, delete or whatever. Move that seat outside of the car. Get the player out of it so he doesn't bug into the car, and then recreate the one on the outside. So it's a little iffy. That's a little bit too much networking. It can be fixed if I do my rotation and shifting right, but it's like, whatever. Not a big deal. But what you end up getting is a car that has passenger seats, so someone can hop in a car, you can drive around with them. There are quite a few issues. Currently, if I get into a seat and I log out, that seat gets stuck inside the car. Also, if I get into a seat and I get killed while I'm in the seat, it gets stuck into the car. And I'm sure there's a lot more I haven't thought of. If the player crashes, for example, or if the server crashes, that would be really bad. Because there's a possibility that the car was saved with the seat inside the car. And so when the server loads back up, that seat's stuck inside the car. So whenever the server loads back up, I need to run a check that says, okay, for every car, if it has a seat in the front, move it outside. So there's a lot of different things that need fixed. I would also really like to make it so these seats were invisible. So when you come up to the car, you're like, oh, I can mount. And the mount button's there, and then you get inside the car, and then you're actually sitting in the seat. And if I get all those bugs fixed, and I do get this to turn invisible and be accessible, then I would say this is a done deal. I'm just checking something real quick. Oh, I need to enable stuff. Well, whatever. It doesn't really matter. Not my biggest concern right now. Pause or close that. All right. So that is that is the networking overhaul I did. Adding seats to cars is just creating the mountable. No simple way to hide objects. Not in Rust, no. The problem with... Well, that's not entirely true. If an object is built correctly in Rust, it's quite easy. You can just access its body object, or its rigid body component, and just disable its render, and it goes invisible, right? The problem is chairs don't have a rigid body. They have a mesh collider, and that's it. And it's a convex mesh collider, which causes even more issues with Unity. And there's nothing I can do to fix that. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. I'm sure that I can find a way. I tried, setting its texture to something that is invisible. I tried a lot of different things, and so far I've not found anything. But yeah, whenever I add the seat, I set its position, disable its collision. I use mount distance to check whether or not it's rotated 90 degrees or not, just because I'm a lazy motherfucker. You know, rotate it, all that. But it's not that bad. I mean, pretty much you add a seat into enter FR, enter BR, enter BL, front right, back left, set its rotations, and then the whole networking system takes over from there. But it's definitely not perfect. But I mean, it works, which is more than the Rust devs can say. Lol. I tried making it so if you come up to a car and someone's in it, you can come up and press E on it and get in. It'll automatically set you to a position. But if someone's in the driver's seat, you actually can't press E on the car and get a network message to fire. So it's not like I can intercept anything from that. It's all client-sided, and there's nothing I can do about that. So I'm kind of stuck with this, as far as I can see. Oh, there's also the issue where someone can come up to a fucking seat and be like, "Oh, I'll take that seat, thank you." And now there's no fucking seat for that car. So, yeah, that's a problem. But that, plus head clipping, plus the terrible networking that I have currently, plus the bugs, definitely not production ready, that's for sure. But I think I've learned more about Rust networking in the last 10 minutes than or in the last 10 hours, I guess I should say, than I have the entire time of playing Rust. And then the drops fix wasn't too hard either. So the problem we were having with drops was we would spawn in the drop and we'd add all our stuff that we wanted to put into it, and there would only be a set number of slots based on how many items were randomly added to that drop whenever it spawned. So it'd spawn like 5 different items, up to 10 items, and it was random. So it basically meant we were stuck with anywhere between 4 and 10 items that we could stick in a kit. So I was like, well, that's never gonna work, and we needed a solution in order to keep the system. So I just dug through some of the game files. I found these variables: initial loot spawn, inventory slots, and only accept category. So I'm not sure if only accept category is ever set. I just set it back to all just to make sure. But that plus if you set the inventory slots prior to spawning and you disable initial loot spawn, it doesn't overwrite this. So you go ahead and you set those up that way with these 3 variables, and it unlocks every slot in the drop, and you can add items into any of them. That wasn't a hard fix. It was just kind of like, oh, okay, that's how it works. But no, that network hook was quite insane. I spent like better half of 2 hours trying to figure out how to patch Oxide because I thought I would have to. And it just turns out I was completely wrong. I didn't have to patch it at all. Just needed to apply the right hook. Also, I still have this issue. So, whenever this installation, uninstallation, it seems like whenever you if you delete the plugin and then re-add it, right, it works fine. But if you just overwrite the plugin and it reloads it, it seems to cause an issue where this old on message gets overridden with the previous one. So it appears to me that the plugin loads again before it initially unloads, which is bad, because if someone's just, you know, dragging and dropping this plugin, they're gonna fuck up their network messages, and they'll get, you know, up, if they do it a lot, they could get upwards of 10 messages per, you know, mount. So I'm like, oh, I wanna, you know, per any RPC, which is, you know, 10 messages for only one, that can cause a lot of issues. I didn't actually notice any issues, but I mean, it definitely lagged the internet. It'll definitely definitely could cause issues. But I don't know. I kind of want to work on this now, but I pretty much blew myself out last night. I had to get up at, what, 8 in the morning, so it's 9:30 now. And I was up till 4 a.m. last night. So I was like, I started working at like 6 p.m. So I blew myself out last night. Yeah, it is a nice car. Look at the high quality resolution. Feel like I'm playing Arma. Photorealism to the extreme. It's also all-wheel drive because I made it all-wheel drive. Beautiful. There's definitely a lot of other things you could do with cars, though. I want to do like a car upgrading system. But does it float? Let's find out. I don't think so. It does not float. Uh-oh. Reverse. It does not float. How? Oh man, that's down there. Well, rip. Let me delete that. Where'd it go? Uh-oh. Oh, we lost the car. Oh well. But yeah, another thing with cars, right? So like I collide with these things, but whenever I go and drive it up into a wall, it like doesn't collide. Or it is kind of colliding. No, it's not, see? It's just like, oh, we don't know what collision is. But I disabled its collider, so it's like, do I have to disable layer collisions as well? I don't know. That lighting is handled on clients too. So there was a floodlight. Where is that? Items. Floodlight. Searchlight. That's what we want. Oh, this has to be placed on a foundation. Items. Where's the blueprint? It's not in here. It's in construction. Where's the wood? I don't know. It's in here. There it is. Alright, so this floodlight here, if I open it and I drop some fuel into it, which I don't have, go ahead and drop some fuel into it, and if I turn it on, you get this light, right? So I wanted to make the light brighter, but that light is actually handled by the client, and you can see that in, I think it's called Searchlight in here actually. Yeah. So you can see in here there's a light effect game object. That never gets created on the server. So there's no way to change how bright the light is, what color it is, nothing. So that's like a useless thing I tried doing. Oh, Lord. Yeah, so I definitely want to take another look at this. I do want to change it so the chair switches its position, and rotation, which I know is going to be possible. And yeah, again, I need to add those hooks for all the possible situations where a player would not just straight up dismount a vehicle. And I need to continue to look for ways to hide the chair. But you can also change how much torque the car has. That's kind of cool. But you can't change its speed. That's static. That's not changeable. It's hard coded in. I also would be kind of... Nah, not really. I don't know, maybe, like, I was thinking third person view, but no, because you shoot out of the driver's seat. But... those few guys, and then there's the casino plugin I gotta work on still. I have 50 RP. Oh, 15 off a queen 5. That was a rough hand. Oh, I ripped a 310. Oh, another 10. Are you kidding me? Alright, we'll hold on 20. Here we go. Oh, fuck me. Well, there goes all my money. We tried. But yeah, that network hook actually is really powerful. I can do a lot with it. Where's the foundation stairs? There it is. Oops, that's not what I want. Yeah, base car is just based off of base wheeled vehicle, base vehicle, which are both really used, and it's really most of its functionality comes from base mountable, which I expect to change as they start adding more updates for cars eventually. But yeah, we have max velocity, which is hard coded to 50F, and it overrides, so it's hard coded. But then you have server out input override. And then spawn chair test actually I never read this. So had I read this, I would have known how to fix that initial issue, preventing you from getting into a seat when it's attached. Oh, man. Well, rip. I don't know if that would have worked necessarily, because base entity.set parent. This dot share angry test dot transform dot local position. I mean, it doesn't hurt to try it, right? Go ahead and open up our server's file system here. Throw it over there. Yeah, it doesn't hurt to try it out. Open up this directory. This is all on another monitor, my bad. Not much I can do about that. Alright, yeah, man. I'll see you later. Okay. So we are going to take this add seat code. We're going to throw it into the T function, which is here. Outer pose, so it's going to be a new vector3 0. We'll do 2. So mount it to the top of the car. We won't set its rotation or its max distance. I wonder, where is... It's not set anywhere, which means it's just constant, or it's not a constant, but it's set in somewhere else. We're not rotating it. We're not going to do that. What we are going to do is do what is it? I assume that just destroys it whenever its foundation is destroyed, which can make sense. And then we need its mesh collider. Is its chair reference public? Please tell me it's public. Thank God it is. Okay. So it's gonna be sedan.share ref dot resource path. Yeah, okay. So we're going to go ahead and hop into the file system here. Test server. Ooh, there we are. Going to unload it. And we're going to verify it unloaded by attempting to spawn a car. Good. And double verify the network hook unloaded by I cannot get in this chair. Nice. Get rid of that car. Now we're going to go ahead and reload cars. Okay. Still can't get in that car. That seat. So we're going to go ahead and hop onto the console here. Sign in. Sorry, I'm not reading chat right now. Where am I? U13. Yes. Alright, I'm on the right server. Just had to verify I was connected to the right server. Okay. So it's chair ref. We're just gonna look into more on how the car works. So we have base car. We'll analyze that just so we have it. We have base wheeled vehicle, which has its wheels and vehicle wheel and a constructor that we don't need. And we have base vehicle, which has constructor that is empty and a mountable. So this actually solved my initial problem with collider stuff. I feel really dumb. I'm just gonna put that in the add seat function real quick, because it's not gonna make a difference in my code. Make seat compatible for attachment. So yeah, it looks like base car, everything is handled in here. So we have the constructor, which sets its lights on, steering, its brake force and its motor force. Has a rigid body, gas pedal. I assume that's how much you push down on the gas pedal? I don't know. Center of mass. Driver position, get fixed update, base that is mounted, so whenever it's initialized, we set its center of mass, we make it turn off kinematics, and it's chair test. So if there's no driver input and it has its chair set, that means it's spawned in proper. It's finished spawning in, I should add, which means we can apply that stuff. Which means all these other things are set. Okay. Let me pull up all this stuff again. So I'm still stuck with the same issue, right? Which is because the chair's parent is another mountable, it's not working correctly. It's failing, most likely at what it was failing before. It's a sphere cast. So it's the same issue. It's just a better way of you know, mounting the chair and stuff. I wonder if that collides. Can I find Oh, back up, back up, back up. Come. Fuck. We're going through the water then. I want to drive under that thing. Because that's a good way to test for collision. Oh. Okay, so it doesn't collide still. That's good. Then it does the exact same thing, just better, better, more optimized. So that's nice. So, how would I go about making it so when you get in the car, if the driver's seat is taken, you can still hop into the car? Well, the car... If player is not equal to mounted, it doesn't let you input it. So if you're not the mounted variable, it doesn't let you input it. And if you're not mounted, then you can't drive it. Let's try something really wanky here. Where is it? We're gonna use add seat now. Add, so base mountable seat equals add seat sedan. Its outer pose is this, and its rotation is 0. So we add its seat. Then we're gonna go ahead and say sedan dot. Okay, so spawn share test accesses a spawn share test sets, or I'm sorry, share test is a private static. Why is that? Based on his driver eye. Oops. So its share test is a bull, so it's whether or not the car... That makes sense. Okay. So it's whether or not cars are... Yeah, it was probably leftover code from when they were developing it. So we can ignore that. So reserved 4 and 5 are its steering. Reserved 1 and 2 or whether or not it's mounted. And that's from fixed updates, so that's like almost constantly called. It's called a lot more than I could handle. I could modify. It wouldn't work. Because it just calls bases mounted. And, you know, is mounted just does a check for the chair's mount. Yeah, so that's not gonna make a damn difference, really. Go ahead and we do corresponds. Cars spawns remove. Oh, cars remove. Cars spawns clear. Cars spawns add. Back away from it so it will spawn cars in it. Oh, that was a weird effect. Are these chairs actually causing collision? No, do they cause collision with the terrain? It does cause collision with the terrain, see? Okay. That's interesting. Yeah, that actually doesn't work. That's interesting. So that doesn't work. Okay, well. Well, we tried. I'm gonna stop streaming, probably take a nap. I need some sleep. I will probably stream again later. Kangi, Rust uses Unity engine. Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna hop off, get a nap or two in, you know. And I'll probably come back and mess with this, fix some of the bugs, whatever. Yeah. I will see you guys